Welcome to Monarchist Minute. I'm your host, William Stout, here with Frederick V and Vice Chancellor Clemens Magnolia. Well, originally, this episode was going to be about the current issues going on along the Texas border and the conflict between state and federal government. We have some exciting news to discuss, don't we, Clemens?
I think we should still try and take this with a grain of salt first, because so far we've only really found one real source. I found another one which was from was it Eurasian Post or something about the possibility of the heir apparent to the Libyan crown running in their presidential election. So we can't say for complete and utter certainty yet, but I think it's okay if we speculate and debate upon it.
Yeah.
Right, well, this has been an idea that's been talked about since, I think, 2021, I believe. Primarily because the idea of restoration of the monarchy is exceptionally appealing to, I believe it's the Islamist faction, so it can bring two or more factions into compromise and therefore end the civil war as a result.
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully.
More importantly, if I remember from the article I read, it also helped block Gaddafi's grandson, I think it was, from running.
No, I think it was his son.
I couldn't remember if it was son or grandson.
Hmm.
Clemens?
I'm sorry, what was it?
We were talking about the Libyan monarchy even. Yeah, according to the article I read, the big thing that we think that the PM is pushing for this is because it keeps Gaddafi's either son or grandson from running for president.
Yeah.
Which obviously, for anyone hoping to create a stable democratic Libya, keeping the Gaddafis out of power is key.
Yeah.
But I want to bring up the fact, a very big important fact, that for years and years and years, despite UN intervention, they have intentionally left out and ignored the idea of restoring the Libyan monarchy.
I mean, this is just common within our modern Western world nowadays, is the fact that we're so averted to the idea of even restoring the monarchy because we're so infatuated with this idea of our liberal democracy. And I'm not trying to hit back at the idea of liberal democracy, but what I am saying is the fact that we are too infatuated with it that we don't try to look at the alternatives that that would much better align with the people and have a much higher chance of actually succeeding. We saw this in Afghanistan. We attempted to put a liberal democratic government in Afghanistan. That's what the second Bush tried to do. And what happened? We lost. 20 years, millions upon millions of dollars, thousands of lives, and we lost.
I have nothing to show.
20 years well spent. Iraq still has an unstable government. It's somewhat stable at least. We defeated ISIS at least, but still it's an unstable government. Syria is still in a civil war. We forget Syria is still stuck in a civil war. Yemen still in a civil war. Libya is still in a civil war.
It seems that
but we're so averted to the idea of restoring the monarchy that we're more than willing to let people die and suffer just because we don't want to even have the idea of maybe we should restore the monarchy. That might be the better choice.
It really seems to me that a restoration of monarchy across the Middle East could really do a whole lot of good. Because, I mean, granted that the Gulf states are basically American protectorates, they're still some of the most stable and developed countries in the Middle East. Like I said, granted, they're basically functionally American colonies.
Yeah.
Only we don't actually get any benefits for colonizing them. In fact, they reap all the rewards.
Well, we do get their oil, so that's...
Yeah, well...
Yeah, but I mean, still, like, most of our oil still just comes from freaking,
Well,
the Saudis.
If I remember correctly, it's not actually us who buy most of the oil from the Middle East, but it's actually our European ally. So we're not even propping them up for ourselves, we're propping them up for like Britain and everything.
Yeah, in the EU.
Yeah. But that's a topic for another time about how the EU really doesn't pull the weight in the American, European, what do we want to call it, sphere of influence world.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, well, I guess if Libya successfully restores the monarchy, that opens the door more for an Iranian
Yes,
restoration.
that's true. And let's not forget that the current president of Georgia, this nation of Georgia, she is still a monarchist. Of course, well, that's why hasn't she restored the monarchy? Well, that's because there's two separate claimants, and the two claimants got married and they divorced. They did have a son, but he's still a child.
So he's not old enough to take
Yeah.
the crown.
Yeah, I think, how old is Prince George? Let me check.
If I remember correctly, I read this in one of those YouGov polls a while back that Georgia is the only republic with actually a pro-monarchy majority so far.
Yes, I believe so,
61% of the
Yeah.
population wants to see a restoration. So it's
Possible
already
restoration. Possible.
yeah, because yes, because the current head of one of the branches of the House of I'm going to butcher this. Bagrationi is his daughter, because he only had two daughters. So his eldest daughter married the heir to the other branch, and together they're divorced now. But they did have a son, little Prince Georgie, and he's currently 12 years old.
so our only concern would be
So we have about 6 more years until he comes of age. Well, I mean, it depends on when they want to say he comes of age. Because you could say he comes of age at age 16, age 17, or age 18. Depends. Because
Well,
in
of course,
history,
like-
sometimes they will say that the age of 16 is the coming of age. So
Well,
either
of course,
4 to 6 years.
they might
And
also
it
let
depends
him.
on whether that child wants to be king or not.
True, and he
Because
might.
for all we know, he could be pro-Republican for all I know.
Well, of course, he might also take some time to go to college and become educated as well before he assumes duties. But I do think I think it's likely that we see a Libyan restoration, a Georgian restoration. Have we heard anything about Nepal as of late?
Nepal, they're still stuck with the pro-communist government, though.
No.
Even though polls show that the people are most likely in favor of a restoration, it's hard to say because also the CCP is not in favor of a restoration either. So
If I remember correctly, the reason that's the case is because it would incredibly screw up the balance of power between India and China. Because
yeah,
Nepal exists as a very, very convenient buffer state. But
Yeah,
if
but-
a monarchy returns, it'll most likely be a Hindu monarchy and therefore favor India more
Well,
than
yeah, actually, yeah, it is because the last king of Nepal, he is a Hindu,
Hmm.
which means he would favor the India.
Right. So it must suck to be wedged between two great powers like that just hate each other.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll have to keep an eye out because protests in Nepal have been going on for several years now, but it seems neither side is willing to agree.
Yeah, it seems that the government is not willing to budge. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, there has been a rumor that Hungary is wanting a restoration.
Honestly, that wouldn't
I
surprise
don't.
me.
I doubt that. I'm be honest. I doubt that. Like I somewhat like Orban. I won't deny it. But the problem I have is I don't think Orban will do it. I just don't think he will.
It would compromise too much of his own power.
And I mean, and it's not the first time that the Hungarians have been like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna totally restore the monarchy." Horthy, Admiral Horthy.
Yeah, bring the Habsburgs back.
Yeah, when he said like, "Oh guys, I'll just be the regent." He was regent the entire time until the Nazis came in and forced him out, and then put their government in power, and then the communists. So
I mean,
yeah.
the Hungarians teasing us with the idea of a Habsburg restoration is better than what the Austrians actually did, which, for those of you who don't know, it's actually illegal per the Austrian constitution for a Habsburg to ever be head of state.
Yeah.
And like they can't even run for president of Austria.
Yeah, that's what most of the Austria and Germany both have. It that the heirs apparent to the monarchy are not allowed to take up positions of power.
Which, in my opinion,
that was put in there to, of course, keep them out, because the last thing they want is the elected officials to lose their power.
That's funny.
It's the same thing everywhere. The elected officials, like, we are so popular that we don't need to worry about these monarchists. The elected officials at the same time, we can't let them come back. Don't let them come back. They're too popular. They could get rid of us because the people don't actually like us.
And I noticed that this seems to be specifically a trade with the German states. I call it this idea of soft authoritarianism. This idea of, rather than repressing their political opponents with like force and like threats, there's like huge bureaucratic processes and institutions that just stay in the way of like any form of opposition.
It's possible for the Bavarian monarchy to return?
Like as a subnational monarchy or as independent?
It could be both, but
it could be either or. Okay.
It depending on what it could be either independent or the latter half.
Bavaria is really strange, of course, because don't they have their own regional parties?
Yeah, the CSU.
So why does Bavaria have their own parties?
Something with Konrad Adenauer and the CDU or whatever.
I didn't know if it was like kind of like a SNP thing where Bavaria has these weird separatist tendencies or not.
There's this idea that the German Empire could return with the Bavarian monarch being the new emperor or something.
I have heard people talking
because they claimed that the Bavarian monarchy did not sign a formal thing of abdication.
Well, I mean, the only monarch who actually abdicated was Kaiser Wilhelm II. Because the only reason Germany became a republic with the Weimar Republic was due to the fact that an SPD politician got too excited, ran out to the window, and yelled, "Republic!" And then Ebert was like, "What are you doing?" But by that point, it was too late, and there was so much chaos that they didn't have enough time to really think about a regency council. And by the time they finally got things stabilized, it was just like, well, we've gone this far. Why would we bring the monarchy back now?
Well,
they should have, because if they did, the Nazis wouldn't have risen to power. But yeah,
hindsight is 2020. But I've heard a lot of arguments for the idea of the widow's fox taking the Kaiser's throne, primarily due to, especially among Catholics, but also because of the controversies that emerged with the
Fred, please mute yourself when you're not speaking, because we can hear your stuff in the background.
But yeah, I've heard a lot of different arguments about
for and against, yes.
Yeah, about with the since wasn't it William III who was
there was no Wilhelm III. Well, Wilhelm III would have been Crown Prince Wilhelm.
Yeah. And didn't he like simp Hitler really hard? So there's a huge deal
Yeah,
with the
he did.
Hohenzollern.
Yeah, that was one of the problems, was the fact that he really cozied up to the Nazis in an attempt to try and get the monarchy restored. Of course, it didn't work because Hitler was lying the entire time. All he cares, and I mean, that's what fascism is. Fascism is everything within the state, nothing outside of the state. Lavender, of course, we all know that Lavender made a really good video talking about how fascism and monarchy are incompatible with each other because the fact that the monarch is above the state.
Mm-hmm. And of course, with Wilhelm III doing this, what happened was basically in doing this, he's ruined the Hohenzollern name, or at least
Well, not entirely though, because his second son, Louis Ferdinand, was actually an anti-Nazi and fought in or well, he acted in some anti-Nazi plots. I think he might have been partially, like slightly involved with the July 20 plot. I'm not sure though.
What? Wait, didn't Wilhelm II have a daughter too? Whatever happened to her?
She married the heir to the Hanovers.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, Princess Victoria married into the Hanoverian dynasty.
because you see pictures of her from time to time. I was always curious what happened to her.
Yeah, she married into the Hanover dynasty. I don't know why I almost said Hohenzollern. No, it's the Hanoverian dynasty. Is where what she married into.
Okay, so which child is the current heir George Friedrich descended from?
He is from Louis Ferdinand, which was the second son of Wilhelm.
The one that did.
And the current heir the current heir is of course Prince Georg Friedrich. And Georg Friedrich is the son of Prince Louis Ferdinand of Prussia, who himself is the third son of Louis Ferdinand, who is the second son of Crown Prince Wilhelm.
So it's
And the reason that Prince Louis Ferdinand took the crown was because his two elder brothers had morganatic, I think, isn't that the word morganatic, right?
Yeah,
Like
I think
non-royal. Yeah, they had non-morganatic marriages.
So it's pronounced Georg Friedrich. I always thought it was pronounced
Georg.
like George
It's
Friedrich.
Georg. It's Georg Friedrich. I know because my great uncle's named Georg.
I always pronounced it like George or like George or something.
Well, yeah, it's the German version of George.
Hmm.
Like if we anglicized it, he'd be George Frederick, Prince of Prussia. It's George Frederick, but it's Georg Friedrich.
Hmm.
no, also I believe that the Brazilians that's increasing by year by year.
Yeah, Prince Bernard of Orleans Braganza, he has been kind of active in Brazil himself.
Yeah. We could see a restoration there.
Brazil. I would like to see Brazil because having at least one monarchy in the new world could just help set our precedent. But I don't know. Brazil's really a wild card. It could go anyway. Because I don't think there's a government Brazil hasn't had. It's had military dictatorship.
Yeah.
Liberal democracies. It's had a monarchy. It's been all over the place. Brazil really is a wild card. We cannot depend on them.
Because the thing is, the Brazilian monarchy was popular back then.
Right.
It was, but
if I remember correctly, the only reason it was overthrown is because
because of the abolishment of slavery. Because a bunch of the landowners were upset that slavery had just been abolished. And so they knew that the emperor himself had not done a good job in trying to raise his heir, because he had one son who died in childhood, and his eldest daughter he basically just didn't care about. Like, not that he didn't care about his daughter, but he just didn't care about raising her to rule. Even though I would say she was competent enough that she could have ruled, but yeah.
Yeah.
So it comes down to sexism and racism. Good job, Brazil. How's that playing out for you?
That could have ended the monarchy right then and there because of the fucking idea that no male heir.
Yeah, that's kind of like Japan's current issue where they're rapidly running out of male heirs. Which
Yeah,
I've said this in past episodes, but I'm gonna say it again. I find it incredibly ironic that a dynasty that's entire claim to power is based off of the fact that they're descended from a goddess is not permitted to have female heirs.
yeah.
Which house is that again?
Yamato.
What is it? I'm sorry, I couldn't understand you there.
Yamato. Like
Oh,
Hamato.
the House of Yamato. Yeah, the Japanese one. Yeah. Well, actually,
Yeah,
I think that actually was because or something. I know when we came in, we completely changed the system though. So I'm not sure what hand we had in that.
right. It very well could have been our fault, or I forget where it changed because I know the absolute male primogeniture was something of a recent addition, but I forget where if it came in with the Meiji Constitution or with our interference. I don't remember. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just saying I always found it funny that a dynasty that claims its power from being descended from a goddess is not permitted to have female heirs.
Yeah.
It seems contradictory, don't you think?
Yep.
Hmm.
But hey,
Oh.
Japan is a very traditional society, so I guess women aren't really the prize.
Well,
Like,
that could be said for all of East Asia. Which brings up an interesting topic. In the event that China were to restore the monarchy, who should it go to?
it, it
I'm not even gonna touch that one. I ain't touching that one with a 50-foot pole. I'm sorry, no.
Ooh, I'm just gonna tell you this. Whatever the mandate of heaven goes to, it's gonna go to someone. It has to be someone Chinese. And it could be anyone.
Right, well, I would have said that had Mao's son probably survived, we would have seen a massive, basically North Korea, China being one giant North Korea with a Mao dynasty, but then we get into the weird argument about whether or not North Korea is technically a monarchy, which I say de facto yes. I don't know what other people think.
That's a claim to be a monarchy. But it's acting like a monarchy.
Right, I kind of see it in the same light as the early Roman Empire, where they say they were a republic, and they organize and they have their laws and legal system set up as if they were a republic. But let's not lie here. There's clearly one dude who's pulling all the strings, and he's got hereditary succession.
Yeah.
What about you, Clemens? What's your thoughts on North Korea? Monarchy? Yay, nay?
I mean, the restoration of the House of Yi as the House of Yi is the Korean monarchy, right? Yeah, I mean that should have been done after the Second World War, but of course the U.S. again, we can't bear the idea of a monarchy, and let's not forget that the Korean monarchs were actually banned from Korea by their dictatorial president, who was first inaugurated because he was worried that the Korean people would replace him with the monarchy.
Wait, so where is the current successors to the Yi dynasty? Where's the current pretender?
So currently, there's some problems with the House of Yi. There's the current heir, so there's two people claiming the heir, the whatever the word is for the head of the House of Yi, that being Yi Seok and Yi Wan. And Yi Seok has only two daughters. And so he has declared that a Korean American named Andrew Lee is his heir.
And what is his relation?
I have genuinely no clue.
Is he even married to one of his daughters?
No. I don't
What?
think so. He's married to Nana Lee. I don't know what her relationship is.
So, the current heir to the Korean throne, because much like the Japanese, there are no male heirs.
But the thing is, the reason they didn't restore the monarchy there was because the Americans were afraid that it would just look like because the Korean monarch was seen as a puppet
Of the
when
Japanese, yeah, that was one of the problems, was the fact that they were basically forced to work with the Japanese.
Much like
Even though almost all of the members of the royal family were in contact with anti-Japanese and pro independence groups.
so much
but
like the Vietnamese monarchy in French Indochina, the monarchy was what's the word I'm looking for? Sullied, or its reputation was soured because of its relation with a foreign overlord.
yeah,
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But
they didn't want population to be angry to think that the U.S. is using the same puppet to
Yeah.
and
well,
besides that, the North wouldn't have agreed to that.
well, I don't know if about American monarchy, but if this Lee guy actually does become king of Korea, we could have at least one American monarch.
Well, no, there was
Well,
an American monarch. What are you talking about? The King of Siam or Thailand.
wait,
I think
what?
Yeah, he was born in the U.S. and by U.S. law, if you're born in the U.S., you're an American citizen.
I was not aware of this.
Yeah, so the current king of Thailand, his father was an American citizen because the fact he was born in I think Massachusetts, I think.
Holy crap. The surprise claimant, forget the Windsors or Jacobites. Thailand American Union, here we come. The
Yeah.
Siamese American. We need to figure out a name for it. Would it be the American Siamese Union, or
I don't know. But yeah, King Rama the Ninth was born in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And as such, that means he was legally an American citizen.
unexpected, but I do
Yeah.
like.
He was the first ever American to actually sit on yeah.
Wasn't
So there
Chile
is presidents from.
a monarchy before it became its own little thing?
Wait, say that again. You broke up halfway through.
Wasn't wasn't Chile a monarchy before they decided?
No. The founder of Argentina was a monarchist. Saint Martin, the guy who was the founder of Argentina, he was a monarchist.
The only Latin American countries that have many monarchies is Brazil and
They actually had a monarchy.
Mexico.
And what?
Granted, Brazil and Mexico. Granted, Grand
Oh, yeah.
Colombia came really, really close, but it ended up not doing.
Close, but no cigar.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, it probably would have been for the best if he did, with Simon Bolivar being Emperor of Grand Colombia or whoever else. But I think it was actually Bolivar who ended up making the call against establishing a monarchy, though. So
Yeah, I mean he was not pro monarchy. Yeah.
yeah, I forget who they wanted to become the theoretical Emperor of Grand Colombia. It's not important, of course, because it never happened.
Yeah. But yeah, I was looking through the heads of the House of Yi, and a lot of it came down to the fact that the heir. So the eldest son of the emperor of the eldest son of the emperor of Korea, Emperor Gojong, his eldest son, Emperor Sunjong, had no children, and his third son, who was his heir, had two sons, but I believe the first one died young, and the second one had no children. He also converted. His second son also converted to Christianity. Interestingly enough,
Really?
yeah, he converted to Catholicism. And then his second son, Yi Kang, who also later in life converted to Catholicism, he had a ton of concubines and one wife. But from what I can tell, not a lot of heirs. It's kind of hard to tell with Yi Kang's children due to the fact that he had, let me count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 children! With his wife and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 concubines!
Yeah. So theoretically, there are tons of heirs.
Theoretically, there could be, but it's hard to say. I don't really have a good enough source on his heirs.
And ladies and gentlemen, this is why European monarchies stick with monogamy. It makes it
also because Christianity, because in Christianity you're not you cannot have more than one wife, and you cannot have a concubine. It's you and your wife. That is a marriage. It's just one man, one woman.
Yeah.
Unless I don't know if I think we have a couple more minutes here. They might beg to differ, but who's asking?
I
didn't ask for your opinion. That's right.
But back to the good old U.S. of A. Texas is challenging this court and the federal government when it comes to
real quick. So I know we say like king and emperor referring to East Asian monarchs, but I was curious about what the actual Korean title for their monarch was.
It was they were kings when they were tributaries of the they were tributaries to the Chinese, and then after after the Qing were defeated by the Japanese in the first Sino-Korean War, Korea broke off and became their own empire. And so the last two monarchs were emperors, Emperor Gojong and Emperor Sunjong.
Well,
it's funny they would say an empire, even though they weren't really big.
I just wanted to say that apparently the Korean word for king is Wang.
Wang.
W-A-N-G. I want to pronounce it a different way, but I'm not out of respect.
But I will say the heir to the Korean monarchy is Yi Wan, who is a grandson of Prince Yi Kang.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and he also has two children too. Or I believe he does. Hold on, let me check. Where does it not going to say? Eldest son of Yi Gap, the ninth son. Yeah, he was the eldest son of Yi Gap, the ninth son of Prince Yi Kang. After the death.
Oh yeah, you guys. You guys said that no monarch was allowed to become leader of a Republican country. Well, I believe there was one time that a former monarch was elected either prime minister or president in Bulgaria.
Yeah, the Tsar of Bulgaria, the Tsar Simeon II was elected. The Tsar was elected the prime minister of Bulgaria, and then the king of Cambodia was elected prime minister before he was restored.
Right, and I remember that the Tsar, at least in Bulgaria's sense, he ended up doing a very, very poor job, and that's why Bulgaria.
He screwed himself over, and then he destroyed the the monarchist sentiment in Bulgaria. He really should have just restored himself to monarchy, and it would have been so much better.
Right. Speaking of Balkans, I would really like to see a Romanian restoration movement.
It was so close. It was so close multiple times. Multiple times. It almost happened. But every time, the presidents of Romania were worried about losing their own power and did everything they could to prevent Michael from becoming monarch. Because the people of Romania loved King Michael. They loved him.
Have you ever seen a picture, dude? He's an absolute shot.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many when he was finally allowed to return to Romania, there was massive, massive crowds that the police had to be called to control the crowds.
Mm-hmm.
I was in Europe at that point. Oh.
Well, anyway, are we ready to move on to the next topic?
Yeah.
So I was talking about Texas.
Yeah.
Earlier.
Texas. What's going on down in Texas?
Deep in the heart of Texas.
Yeah, Yellow Rose of Texas.
Yeah. So this conflict is taking place at, I believe, only a small portion of the Texan border called Eagle Pass. Was it?
Yeah. So what happened was federal agents were cutting barbed wire that kept.
That the National Guard of Texas had put in place as to enforce the laws of
What they did was they sent the National Guard over there to enforce the border.
Mm-hmm.
Happened was the Supreme Court was in favor of Biden, and
Well, no, not exactly in favor of Biden, but against the actions taken by the National Guard of Texas.
To quote the Supreme Court, it's not that they support Biden's border policy. It's just they simply have to assert the fact that the governor has no right to control the international border because he doesn't have the authority. However, I did see an interesting legal argument on Twitter in one of the comments of one of our posts we made on the subject, where the lady stated that if Biden wasn't adequately addressing the issue or was ignoring it, that could be an implied power that the states have under the 10th Amendment in order to protect their own public interest. So this comes back to one of the earliest political conflicts in American history. In a way, it's almost refreshing. The conflict between the authority of state governments and the authority of federal governments.
Yeah, it's a big argument. But people have said this is a powder keg that could lead to something else.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Clemens.
Texas.
No, it's just saying, yeah.
I don't think this is going to be big enough to trigger secession.
I really don't think it is. I have to agree with Cody from the Alternate History Hub that it's just going to be a big old nothing burger.
Yeah, honestly, I think Biden's going to end up backing down because this is basically a hole he's digging at this point. And the more he keeps pressing against Texas, the worse he looks.
But the thing is, the Texas governor, the people of Texas support him. He's got support. I'm not sure if they would support his idea of leaving the Union in order to protect Texas.
Right, because especially the very large, already pre-existing Hispanic population probably wouldn't like it very much. But it is an interesting thing to see the war and argument between states' rights and federal power return. It almost shows how much our nation is digressing as a result of partisan politics.
Yeah.
We were supposed to have this cooked out after the Civil War, but here we are.
Yep.
As a resident Southerner, Clemens, do you have anything to say on this subject?
I'm sorry, what? I'm reading a bunch of stuff right now. I can't say it again.
I was saying, as our resident sovereigner, do you have anything to say on the matter of states' power and?
Well, you know what? Well, I'll tell you what. Here's what I think, and I am, of course, a mere Southern gentleman, really. But this is exactly what I have to say on this issue: is that I do agree, as a traditional conservative in the pre-Enlightenment sense, that the government itself should not be overbearing. Now, the government should act when it is necessary, but in a case like this, it is necessary that the states take their own power and act in the interest of the nation as a whole. And in the interest of the nation as a whole, it is important that we deal with the mass immigration issue. Don't matter what party you're from, but this is an issue. We had millions of people crossing over the border just the previous year. And if the government refuses to act and enforce our border laws as they are, it is the states' rights to enforce the law that the federal government will not. That is my opinion.
Well spoken.
Thank you.
Personally, in my opinion, I think what we should be doing to solve this problem is we need to take this fight south of the border, and we need to start addressing the issues in Central and South America that are causing people to flee their countries for the U.S. in the
Well,
first place.
I mean, the thing is that some of the issues have actually been addressed. Like, it used to be that one of the largest group that was coming into the U.S. was El Salvadorians, and the current president of El Salvador, no matter what you want to call him, is he an authoritarian? Probably. But he's doing a good job, and he's exceedingly popular because, yeah, he basically declared martial law in the country, but he destroyed numbers of gangs and violent thugs in El Salvador, bringing stability to the nation. This is something I personally believe in. You cannot have freedom without stability. You can't. You cannot actually have freedom. I know my anarchist friends will argue with me on this, and we can have conversations on that. But in my opinion, you cannot have legitimate freedom without stability in a nation. It is not possible.
The presence of the rule of law.
Because the most important is the freedom to not be attacked. The freedom from assault and from attack, the only way you can have that is with stability. That's why I'm a firm believer that without stability, there can be no freedom. Call me an authoritarian if you want. I'm sorry, but from what I've seen through history, stability and authority within reason is necessary for there to be freedom. That's why I believe, because our freedom is derived from our national stability. If there is no national stability, there is no freedom.
I also think fixing our issues in Latin America is important because we really should be moving our manufacturing over there and away from China because China is against our interests. And if we really want to have cheap manufacturing, which ideally it would all be moved back into the country, I'd rather it be in Latin America than in China.
Yes, at least the Latin American countries are more willing to actually cooperate with us. And aren't our enemies on the national world stage. Like Guatemala, El Salvador, Panama, Costa Rica. We've good relations with all of those countries. I do think it'd be a good thing for us to improve relations with those countries and help them in industrialization.
And Frederick, you were saying?
So El Salvadorians were moving up to the border? I thought it was like the Venezuelans or something.
Before, like not too long ago, El Salvadorians was the largest group. In fact, I think it's that there's more El Salvadorians in the U.S. than there is in El Salvador now.
Wow. I think Guatemalans are a big one too.
Yeah, and of course, Guatemala, I've heard, is actually beginning to move towards slowly stabilizing themselves.
So maybe this is just the what's the word we're looking for? The dying.
I think there was like some conflict going on in what was that country? It was a conflict between the government and the cartels or something.
Well, that's been happening for a while, though.
Yeah, it's like
It has escalated to these cartel gangs going out and starting to fuck up the place because the government wants to imprison them. It's not El Salvador.
that sounds like it might be Colombia, 'cause I know Colombia has a problem with one of their biggest cartels. Basically, is a functioning insurgency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that is really just the whole issue. And part of how these cartels got so powerful does have to do with the US. Like a lot of these guys that ended up founding these cartels way back in the 70s and 80s were anti-communist fighters. Like they were the Contra fighters, and we ended up pouring arms, money, and ammunition into them in order to get them to kill socialists and communists, and then after the wars were done and after the communists were dead, they started trading drugs.
It's also because thanks to our American government that the war on drugs happened because buying cocaine from these groups and then we were putting them in poorer neighborhoods to be sold.
So I've heard it go less directly, but there is a very, very big correlation with CIA activities and the cocaine trade.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, is there anything else we want to talk about, or are we okay to close it out for the evening, everyone?
I think we're good though. Yeah.
Oh, Frederick? Anything?
When it comes to trying to advance our policies, I think we should be moving more towards using the current thing, but we shouldn't like ditch our ideas and that kind of stuff, but we should be more towards going towards the current thing. By,
Yeah, which there's always a huge list of current issues coming up, especially with the news. And we will always keep track of those and talk about them in future episodes. But
yeah.
until then, thank you all for joining us this evening. Links of importance are in the description below. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, wherever. Email us if you want to get more active in the organization, or join us on Discord. Would you all please bow your heads? In the name of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us of our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thy is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Thank
Amen.
you for joining us. Thank you for listening in, wherever you are. God bless you. God bless the United States of America. And good night.
Oh yeah, and don't forget to like and subscribe if
That's true. Don't forget that part. That's important.
Yeah, definitely don't forget that part. But good night.